Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be teaching you how to build a moderately efficient and moderately cheap moss farm. Now, while I'm aware that there are quite a few moss farm designs out there, with some being cheaper than this one, and others being a lot more effective than this one, I do feel that this is kind of here to fill in a certain niche, because, well, there's about 3 moss farm designs that I see out there, 2 of which are not, in fact, that particularly efficient. And the other one being Ilmango's, which is very efficient, but also very resource heavy. And kind of just seeing these 3 farm designs being iterated again, and again, and again, and again, just kind of feel a little bit exhausting to me, and so I decided to, put out my own design here. Now, it's kind of not as spectacular as it used to be in terms of being superior to other farms. Moss farming has become a little bit more efficient over time. So when this was first built, its rate of 1,700 items per hour was pretty impressive, but nowadays it's just a little bit over what you would typically expect. However, I still think that this is a design that is worth knowing if you wish to kind of explore moss farm designs, and with that, I think it's important to begin. Before we begin, I think it's important to go over some of the materials. First and foremost, everything here should be in exact quantities needed, with the exception of the lava buckets and water sources. For the lava, whether or not you want to fill up every single space in the stone generator where the lava will be, will kind of affect your buckets. This is, as far as I'm aware, the minimum amount needed to complete the farm, while the water buckets are simply here in a number that can fill one side of the water generator. As will be explained later in the tutorial, it's usually advisable to produce some sort of infinite water source by the side that you can return to over the period of time. To begin the build, we will be first marking out a 17 by 17 space, ideally in a flat area. Once you've dug out a 17 by 17 area and placed blocks in the corners, move in by 8 blocks until you've reached the center of the farm. From here, you are going to move in 2 blocks and begin digging out a space for the hoppers to collect bone meal. This area should be roughly a 5 by 2 rectangle with a T-shaped area moving in. Once you've dug in 3 blocks, dig a final block and place down 2 of your droppers. This will act as an elevator to put the bone meal back into the farm. Once you've completed the first layer, it is now time to place the composters down. While each hopper will get a composter, only the first 10 will be used for bone mealing. The last 3 are simply used for lag prevention. While this is not necessary, I tend to prefer to play it safe. On the composters that will be used, place a layer of hoppers down. And on top of this layer, we're going to put barrels on the first row. While this is theoretically not necessary to have this first row at all, it tends to allow the farm to process items at a quicker rate. Without it, the hoppers tend to back up a bit. To complete the bone meal return system, we will place a dispenser on top of the central elevator. This is where the moss block will be used, and will power the whole farm. Moving on from the redstone line, we are going to place a line of building blocks, one away from it, in a 5-long pattern, such that it is centered on the redstone line, and then another redstone line will be put on top of it. This is the beginning of the stone generator, and for this side in particular, we will be adding a redstone torch here to activate the center. Once this is done, we are going to start working on the back of it, which requires a repeater on 2 ticks. And from this, we are going to make a V shape. While, like other things, this is not strictly necessary, it does allow some saving on redstone through the use of bud powering the outer set of sticky pistons. Once these are in place, you want to put a sign in the back of these. While I'm not 100% certain if this is required, it is a failsafe in case the push limit is not exceeded from the pistons on the other side. Once these pistons are in place, we're now going to move over to regular pistons and place them in the same area. And as a final step to the double piston extender, we will be placing some target blocks underneath. These will both act as the final power source to extend the pistons, as well as a bottom support for the stone generator. And because the stone generator is too wide, we will also need to place another row of building blocks. From here, the stone generator needs to be completed with a rather complicated set of stair configurations. There isn't necessarily an easy way to do this, but my best recommendation is to start from the outside and work inwards. First, by making this pattern with this stair curved such as to keep the water from flowing out, and then placing a stone block on this side, and then extending it all the way along. Once you have this basic shape, you are then going to need some water. While you can fill up a bunch of buckets beforehand, I would recommend making a infinite water source just so you don't have to carry all the buckets around with you all the time. Now, as you might notice, even though there is water flowing directly above redstone, it is not actually flowing down and breaking it. Because of this, it is absolutely crucial to make sure that it can't do this beforehand, which is why these blocks will be removed once we have generated stone. As a final completion, we are now going to raise the wall up by 1 around all sides. And then, as a final step, placing down the lava. Once this is done, and the stone has been generated, you can now remove the temporary blocks within these two kind of alcoves. Now that the stone generator is finished, we're going to do the same on the other side, 5 blocks away from the center. Once you've completed both stone generators, they should come up to a corner like this, with the hoppers placed down. This is completely fine, as water will only come up to this block. However, just for some security and safety, I would advise extending the blocks out by 2, so it encloses both the barrels and the actual hoppers that will collect the items. The stone generation part is not done, however. The last one will be in the back, and is only a single piston extension. To begin the final stone generator, we are first going to extend a line of building blocks along the back of the moss farm. The purpose of this line is to both locate the final stone generator as well as provide a space for the flushing system. Where the stone will be pushed through, make sure to place temporary blocks that can be converted into a moss block when it's pushed through. This is because these spaces will become inaccessible quite quickly. Now that the wall is complete, it is time for another redstone line. To do so, we are going to place it down such that there is a single block gap in between, and again we're going to make it 5 long. From here, we are now going to place a block in the center, and then make 2 stacks of blocks on the sides, and then run redstone over the whole thing. The purpose of this is to ensure that all of the pistons are powered due to their transparency. While it seems like it may be hard to place them down, we can simply do this to ensure that they will be in the correct spot. Then we are going to place down blocks in front in order to make sure that there is a base for the stone to form on. To finish the stone generator, we're first going to need to place in the stairs again. Like the ones before, it's a little bit complicated, and I realistically probably should have avoided putting in this line of building blocks, as it's going to make it a little bit more complicated. Firstly, we're going to put them in a corner here to ensure that this one is curved to keep out water from the redstone. Similarly, we want to ensure that the middle one is facing inward to protect this piece as well. Now that they're all in place, we can waterlog them. Also, please note that this one and this one do not need to in fact be waterlogged, as they are just there for redirection. Now that they're all in, we can place in the lava. Before moving on to the flushing system, we should first produce the generation pad that the moss will grow on. To do this, we're going to add the clock, and also wire up the stone generators. Unfortunately, I seem to have made a miscalculation, and will need to dig a little space for the actual clock. However, before doing that, we're going to run a redstone line that will fit the shape of the farm. First, we're going to make these little U-shaped bays, and place a repeater at 4 ticks that will power the stone generators on each side. And then both of these will be connected up with a single redstone line that will meet in the middle. Similarly, in the back, we need to connect one of the side stone generators to the hind one. Now, there isn't really one way to wire this up, but personally I find this layout to feel at least somewhat nicely compact. And to ensure that the stone generators can actually push stone in, we do need a delay between the two. For me, I found that the ideal delay is about a repeater on 4 ticks and another repeater on 1 tick for a total of 5 ticks. Now that we're at the front of the moss farm again, it's time to put in the clock. To begin, we're first going to place a piston in front of the machine, facing up. And on top of that, we are going to place an observer. This is effectively the thing that will power all of the systems in the farm, with a clock telling it to pulse every 26 ticks, if I remember correctly. Next, to begin the clock, we are going to basically just do a redstone torch and repeater clock. And when you place down the redstone torch first, you can kind of hear the farm produces first stone, and it should look approximately like this. Then we're going to lay down the repeaters for our clock. There's going to be 3 of them, and each one is going to be set to 4 ticks, with each one beginning and ending with block and then a piece of redstone here. And as you can hear, the farm is now producing stone and trying to activate the dispenser. Now, since we don't really want this to be running all the time, I would recommend putting a lever on top of the build at this point and flipping it on. This will turn the farm off. Also, you might notice that there are still 3 holes here. This is the final one that will be for the boss, and these 2 are the only spaces that cannot be reached by pistons, so for now we're just going to block it with something that can be turned into moss. As a final touch, we're going to place the moss block in the center, and finish with the flushing system. To begin, we are just going to kind of do what you would expect of trapdoors and waterlog them. However, as you might notice, I have 5 extra trapdoors. this is mostly to make sure that items don't fly off the edge here. Kind of the basis of this idea is that you can kind of walk in and grab moss blocks yourself. However, for some reason in a few versions ago, this started spitting out items a little bit farther than usual occasionally, so this is just kind of there to make sure that that doesn't happen. Now, as you might have noticed, I have kind of removed the lava in the back here, and that's because I made an assumption about where I could save on lava buckets, and it turns out that I cannot do that because there is going to be a block here supporting some redstone. So before we move on, we need to put lava on the two sides of this, and then continue down to the bottom here, where we need to place a target block. And we can just barely do that. First, we're going to put a dispenser there, stack up a block, take this one out, and place a top dispenser. Now that we're back at the top, we're going to remove this block and place down a block here, comparator here, a block there, and so the first one is going to go right here, and around it we're going to extend the walls of the moss farm all the way around. And this is mostly just to make sure that no moss kind of escapes to the sides. And then on top of this redstone torch, we're going to go out by 2 on each side. And now that these 2 sides are completed, we are going to place down a repeater, and then a solid block, which it looks like I'm running out of again, and then a torch. Now, you might have heard a click, and that is due to bud powering. Just to make sure that the system works, we're going to place in a single kind of just junk block, and we should have seen it flush a bit. And at this point, we should be ready to add in the bone meal. To begin with, we're just going to put in 64. I think there's a smaller amount, but this just seems like ideal. And then going to the front of the farm, we can turn it on. As you see, the farm is now working quite effectively. As you might have noticed, I have not specified a storage system. The one shown here simply detects when the bottom dropper reaches a certain fill level, at which point it will siphon off excess bone meal. For further updates and information on the farm, please check out the description.